morning on Wednesday, the 29th of January 2025. It's 8 a.m. in the Gambia and therefore coffee time on West Coast Radio with me, Peter Gomez. Thanks for joining us. Salieu Taal is my guest for the whole hour this morning. Good morning, Sal.
Good morning, Uncle Peter.
Yes, even the president calls me that. If you weren't coming to the studio this morning, where would this hour have met you?
Actually, I'm actually participating at an NGO sort of training forum on the regulation of NGOs, the law pertaining to the regulation and governance of non-governmental organizations at Baobab. So as soon as I finish, I'm running right to that event. I'm one of the facilitators.
Okay, so early starts are normal for you?
I actually wake up at 5 in the morning, every day. Really.
And what's the first thing you do when, you wake up?
I wake up, I have my cup of espresso. Then I get on my treadmill. Then
another caffeine addict.
Then I pray. And sometimes I go biking.
Very good.
Yes.
So I hope you're not bringing in new laws to curtail the activities, restrict the activities of NGOs, because we see that happening across a number of African countries.
I think you should ask that to your guest, yesterday's guest. I don't have the power to bring laws, and if I have the power to bring laws, I would definitely bring laws that would, open up the space for. Open up the civic space. Because I've been working, that's my area, my passion. That's why I do this, to really sort of help open up the civic space. Because this space was closed for 22 years, and we've now seen a burgeoning civil society and activists and activism and NGOs. And it's work in progress, so it's important that the regulatory environment also regulates the sector, but also does not stifle the sector.
And how relevant, how useful are NGOs, in a democratic drive?
Okay, I'll just enlarge. I'll say non-state actors or civil society. I think NGO is sort of more structured, like the Action Aids and those type of sort of well-structured organized. I think if you look at during the Jammeh era,
yes,
you had NGOs were in Gambia, many of them, doing different things, intervening mainly to alleviate poverty in social sectors like education, health, and so on and so forth, even FGM. But if you look at the NGO that have actually been, if you look at the people, those who have been more impactful in bringing about change is non-state, civil society, what we broadly call civil society, which is individual activists or groups of people coming together.
But it's only within the past 7 to 8 years. During Jammeh's era,
but
we spoke only about NGOs.
Yes, but because the space did not permit or restrict it. Even NGOs weren't even talking about rights. The word rights was not even in the vocabulary of NGOs. You don't even hear governance. The word governance, you don't even hear it. I remember, I think one editor was fired for using governance or something like that. I think Observer, one of those places. So the language was even different. So the NGOs had to do what they had to do within the limits of the environment because it was a very repressive regime. So they did a lot in terms of helping poor Gambians and Gambians who were marginalized in different spaces, which we have to give them credit to. But when it comes to helping Gambians realize the political and human rights, I think that probably exploded towards the latter stage of 2016, and thereafter, now it is where it is.
Yeah, latter stages of 2016,
yes.
Culminating in,
amongst other things,
Gambia has decided.
Yes, and yes, we did decide.
Salieu Taal is with us for the entire hour. It's interesting headline in at least two of the newspapers this morning. This magistrate standing trial for drug dealing and fraud has to be embarrassing.
It is. I think that is
to the legal profession.
I think it is disgraceful. It is really embarrassing for all of the legal fraternity, and disgraceful, of course, to the judiciary and the entire legal sector, and of course to the country as well. Because I think as somebody who works in different jurisdictions, I think the Gambian jurisdiction, this is alien to us. I think if you look at the corruption index, I think we're probably one of the least corrupt judiciaries in the sub-region. So to see these types of behaviors being manifested, and this is not the first time we're having these kinds of problems. It's been brewing, especially at the subordinate court levels. I think it deserves attention, more attention, and I think it has to be dealt with to set an example that corruption has no place, particularly with those who are meant to adjudicate disputes. I mean, really, it's really unacceptable.
I know the work that magistrates, do, should not be, underestimated, should not be undervalued at all. They are part of the legal profession. But do they undergo the same training, subjected to the same professional ethics as, for instance, yourself as a full lawyer and the judges?
I mean, I think the majority of cases actually go to the subordinate courts, because subordinate courts, the magistrate courts in the, let's say, rent tribunal, industrial tribunal, and even the district courts. I mean, that's the majority of Gambians would actually interface with those courts, because number one, the barrier to, you don't need a lawyer to go to the magistrate court, whereas if you go to the high court, you have to hire lawyers. So in terms of access to justice, these are the courts that are more accessible to the majority of litigants, and the magistrates have to be lawyers, qualified as lawyers. So they're subject to the same ethics as lawyers. But I think
what about their training, especially on the job, ongoing, capacity?
I mean, I think there's a judicial there's actually a judicial training institute where they do get some amount of training in terms of they get oriented and the like, and of course there's continuous training that happens. But I think the system has to be looked at fundamentally, because let's say I like the Francophone system where. What
about their system that is different from ours?
No, you train as a judge. When you decide to become a lawyer or become a magistrate. So when you finish law school, you take a stream and a magistrature, and you train specifically as a magistrate. You have specialized training as a magistrate. So that's why the magistrates are different. And they have also the kind of standing they have in terms of the pay they have, even the respect they get.
So here, what's the system? You all go to the same law school, then you come out and what? And then you try to get into the higher courts. You don't make it, then you start at the lower.
Not necessarily. I think there are people who decide to start at the bench and they start at the lower bench. Some of them even start as clerks, go to the University of Gambia, then become magistrate. They'll go to law school, become qualified, and then up to go to the bench, lower bench. They start at the lower bench, and they rise
through the ranks,
and then end up in the high court and thereafter. So there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that we need to look at judicial training. Sort of look at it more holistically and start sort of training people who want to be judges, because there are people whose track is to be judges, and they have to have specialized long-term training.
Salieu Taal, as I said, is with us until 9 o'clock. It's coffee time with Peter Gomez. The Standard reports Barrow this morning, Sal, as saying GRA's revenue collection is driving government developments. Do lawyers feel, like we poor broadcasters do, that they are also overtaxed?
I think. Let me look at it differently. I think it is, in my opinion, it is. As somebody who also understands economics a little bit, I think you can't drive an economy based on taxation, fundamentally.
So Barrow doesn't know what he's saying.
I'm not saying he doesn't know. President Barrow is not an economist. It's not the only African country that is doing that. If you go to Kenya, they have a big issue, Senegal, because that's the easiest way. The easiest way to raise revenue is through taxation. But I think our government needs to be more creative about how to raise revenue rather than direct taxation. There are only many ways you can do it.
Well, they argue they are creative. That is why every year, GRA gives them more money.
GRA is doing a good job collecting taxes, and I think what should happen is, in this country, a few people are paying taxes. They should widen the tax base. Yeah. If they widen the tax base and lower
which is what the Commissioner General says they are aiming to do every time.
Yeah, and they've been very innovative, bringing in. The GRA has been very innovative, bringing new technology, bringing other things to be able to get more people in the tax bracket. I think if they widen the tax base, we should not be paying more than 15%, even tax. I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If you have more people and they pay for a flatter rate,
yes,
and the higher people pay, let's say maximum, I think that then more people will actually pay taxes.
Yeah.
But if the tax is high, many may not pay. I think it's still work in progress, and I think, but I think fundamentally, you can tax people out of business. And also, I think in most countries, investors like to invest and pay reasonable taxes. But if investors feel like a country is a high-tax economy, they will not invest in your country. True. I deal with different kinds of investors, and that's the message we get. Oh, Gambia is a high-tax-based economy.
Oh dear.
And also, what you make here is not a lot of money compared to Senegal, Abidjan, or other places. So
smaller population.
Yeah, so you also, it's a disincentive. So, yeah. But I think, notwithstanding, it is what it is. They say there's something that's certain in your life: taxes and death.
Absolutely. All right, Salieu Taal, as I keep reminding you, is with us the whole morning up to 9 o'clock. Let's go now to our news and reports. And in the last few minutes, we've received this statement from ECOWAS headquarters. The withdrawal of Burkina Faso, the Republic of Mali, and the Republic of Niger from ECOWAS has become effective today, the 29th of January 2024. 25 it should be. However, in the spirit of regional solidarity and in the interest of the people, as well as the decision of the ECOWAS authority to keep ECOWAS's doors open, all relevant authorities within and outside ECOWAS member states are requested and required to A. Recognize national passports and identity cards bearing ECOWAS logo held by the citizens of Burkina Faso, the Republic of Mali, and the Republic of Niger until further notice. B. Continue to treat goods and services coming from the three countries in accordance with the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, ETLS, and investment policy. C. Allow citizens of the three affected countries to continue to enjoy the right of visa-free movement, residence, and establishment in accordance with the ECOWAS protocols until further notice. And D. Provide full support and cooperation to ECOWAS officials from the three countries in the course of their assignments for the community. These arrangements will be in place until the full determination of the modalities of our future engagement with the three countries by the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government. The Commission has set up a structure to facilitate discussions on these modalities with each of the three countries. This message is necessary to avoid confusion and disruption of lives and businesses of our people during this transition period. Well, you chuckle. Why?
I think I'm glad that ECOWAS.
Very proactive, huh?
No. I think now they're acting diplomatically, but I think they erred in the initial reaction was a knee-jerk reaction, because then Tinubu had just taken over, didn't have a cabinet, and they decided to use force. Threatened use of force, that if they don't, against Niger and other places, and those people called their bluff, basically, and they were shut out diplomatically. My father was a diplomat for 50 years, so I understand diplomacy a little bit. And force is the last thing you use. You exhaust diplomatic means until it is not possible anymore. But they started the wrong way, in my opinion, and it backfired. So now they're coming back. It's water under the bridge, and now they're leaving the door open for these three countries. These four countries account for 60% of the land mass of ECOWAS. So it's a big dent in the community. The absence is a big dent. So I'm happy that these three countries, the AES, are out, but they're still enjoying the privileges of being ECOWAS national movement of goods and the rest of it. So I hope this will allow more engagement, constructive engagement, so that they can actually be part of the community. And I think it also sends a message for ECOWAS to really look inward and really reorganize itself better and differently, and to be seen as serving the community.
So that's a quarter of the organization that the people like Sadauda Kairaba Jawara helped found, because it started with Mauritania, so you've had 3 more going, so that's 4 out of 16. Yes. That's 25% of ECOWAS has now been lost.
And the size, the Sahel is huge. Apart from the number, the size is huge. If you look at the map, look at the map, it takes them out.
Yeah.
It's the half of the land size of ECOWAS is now outside the community.
And then you have extremism affecting
the hotbed
exactly.
of conflict is the Sahel. So it has a lot of geopolitical and regional implications to ECOWAS. So I think ECOWAS now realized the need to really try as much as possible to limit the damage or minimize the damage, and also leave the door open. So I think it's a very good policy. I think it's a very good sort of statement, and I hope it eventually these AAS will come back, and our region should not be a playground of imperial powers.
Absolutely.
Powers, Chinese, American, Western. That's basically what is at play.
Well, we'll talk about Trump very soon.
Exactly.
It's coffee time with Peter Gomez, and Salieu Taal is our guest this morning. Let's bring you this announcement. On waste transporters across the country, the National Environment Agency, NEA, has observed with great concern the growing number of private waste collectors using different mechanisms in the waste management stream. This has led to some illegal waste dumping by some of the operators, thus posing a huge challenge in addressing a clean and healthy environment. The manner and ways in which waste is transported and disposed of affect the aesthetic value of our surrounding environment due to indiscriminate dumping of litter and other unacceptable behavior in public places with negative environmental implications. The agency, as mandated by the National Environment Management Act 1994, hereby calls on all private waste collectors using vehicles, motorbikes, donkey or horse carts and other means to register with the National Environment Agency to enhance the regulation and enforcement of the Anti-Littering Regulations 2007 and Ban on Plastic Bag Order 2015. Waste collectors are required to visit the National Environment Agency at its Carnifing Complex, Jimpex Road, or NEA regional offices in WCR, LRR, NBR, CRR, and URR during office hours from Monday to Thursday. That's 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Fridays 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for their registration and to be issued with a permit after meeting the requirements. And this call is effective from the 13th of January to the 14th of February 2025. Collectors are hereby reminded that waste dumping in non-designated sites contravenes the Anti-Littering Regulations 1999, thus committing an environmental offense. Signed, Dr. Dauda Baji, Executive Director, National Environment Agency. If you'd like to advertise on the program, get in touch with Mr. Jibril Jassi on 699-0107 or 787-0107 or 924-24-24. Now, a lot has happened in the last 10 days. President Barrow addressed his party loyalists at a delayed biennial Congress. Fugitive former dictator Yahya Jammeh released an audio chastising his successor, not for the first time. Donald Trump returned to the White House following his resounding election victory last November. Mbemba Drame, remember him? He was the guy who claimed to have helped rig the 2021 election that kept Barrow in power when he skipped bail. And my guest visited Monrovia. Now, Salieu Taal was in Liberia to help that country set up a war crimes tribunal as part of its transitional justice process. We were just talking about our own transitional justice process yesterday with the man leading the process, the Minister, Dawda Jallow, and his special advisor on transitional justice, Ida Person. The second part of my long conversation with them will be on YouTube shortly. But let's pick up our conversation again with Sal on his mission to Liberia. So what do you have? US dollars or Liberian dollars?
Well, as you know, there's a stop order executive order by President Trump. So obviously, basically any sort of overseas engagement has effectively been suspended. That's basically where it is now.
Okay. Well, let's just pick up on that.
Yeah.
How does it affect maybe democracy interventions by the U.S. Embassy in the Gambia and, other aid projects?
I think let me play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe it might be a blessing in disguise.
Oh.
Yes.
Explain that, please.
I mean, I was in Liberia as part of a high-level assessment mission of different experts from the continent and from the United States.
You'll tell me more about that. Let's just deal with
this.
No,
I'm just saying.
Yes.
And in that room, with different Africans, talking about how a decision of an American president is now going to hamper our efforts in democratizing our country or making our country more accountable. So my take is I think it's shameful that we really sit here as Africans and say that after how many years of independence?
60 for us.
60 years
in a few days.
That our elections, our constitution building, our transitional justice cannot exist without American or EU support. Really, I think for me, that means we have failed as a people, as a country. We failed generations. How is it that when anything to do with democracy, rule of law, governance, we have to have the begging bowl to that other side? So for me, I think we need to look back. We need to fund our democracy. We need to fund our good governance because it is benefiting us. After all, Gambians were killed here by Gambians on Gambians' territory. Mm-hmm. Not Americans, not Europeans, not French. So how can we, if we really care enough about these things, we should be able to put more resource into it, in cash and in kind. Sorry, the OIC meeting was 2 days, and how many minutes were spent on luxury vehicles? Is that more important than the lives of Gambians? The same thing you can say from other African countries. So we need to, I think it's time for introspection. If we are sovereign, independent countries, or are we still colonized? For me, that's how I see it. I mean, it's good that we're getting support from the West because they're part of our problems. They're part of creating the structural problems that led us to where we are. They're part of it and they have responsibility. But even without the support, we should be creative enough to find ways of solving our problems, African solutions to African problems. But we have to be committed to do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we were just talking about the good work that civil society organizations are doing in this country, one of which is Gambia Participates. Yes. Now, they get quite a good chunk of their funding from the U.S.
Yeah, which is good. I'm the chair of Gambia Participates.
Exactly. So how will the freezing of aid?
I mean, it will impact on, programs that need to be implemented. The Gambia Bar Association also, we've gotten very good funding from the Americans, which has helped us support the government in establishing the special accountability mechanism, the court, and other legal frameworks. So we also will be affected. But I think we just have to go back to the drawing board because it is what it is. It's a new era in America. Okay. It is America that is against multilateralism. So that's the American politics. We need to look now. We can't own American problems. That's American taxpayers' issues. We as Gambians and Africans and West Africans should say, now, how do we move from here? Because we need to move.
Trump would say, I'm trying to fix, America's problems.
Yes.
He's trying to, slim down the government.
Yes.
I mean, he's offering...
Whatever his justification is, I'm not even going to spend my energy talking about it. I'm just saying that me as a Gambian, we have real problems. We have poverty, abject poverty. We have poor health services. We have, poor education. Look at the education sector. Look at the WIAC results, and so many problems. So we should now find ways of solving that using our limited resources, even without the donors. Of course, the donors will help, but without the donors, doesn't mean we're going to fold our hands. And this is an Africa-wide problem.
Yahya Jammeh, as I said, released an audio, and everybody's been talking about it. I mean, how do you see this situation where this is a guy who is running away from justice, but he sits in a third country and just meddles, with our politics?
Because we allow it.
True.
We allowed
Absolutely.
and tolerated it.
Yeah.
Because if we had nipped this at the bud in 2017, we should have dealt with this decisively.
Yes.
But there are certain things we did. We co-opted members of the APRC from the beginning of, I think the speaker was hired and made an ambassador, I remember in the beginning, to South Africa, if I remember, from day one. One of the APRC, from the beginning, when we had a consensus.
Was that the late Keba Bojang?
Yes,
was it?
yes. That's where it started. And then, of course, you have Sidi Njai and Fabakari occupying the highest offices of the land. This is the Sidi Njai who was in the plane with Yahya Jammeh. This was Sidi Njai who signed the affidavit saying that Barrow should be president, should not be president in the court processes.
Even swore.
So this is Fabakari
over his dead body.
Yes, among other things. This is Fabakari who was in Parliament that passed a resolution for a state of emergency against the will of the Gambian people.
Well, for those who don't understand the implications of a state of emergency, the Constitution is set aside.
Yeah, and also
the law of the land is.
In fact, it effectively extended Jammeh's power for 90 days.
Yes, because it meant that the Constitution does not exist.
Yeah. So this happened in this country, and it's like we have amnesia. We forgot about everything, and now those people are in the highest offices of the land. Today, if something were to happen, he could be president of this country.
Yes.
So for me, it's like, of course, Yahya Jammeh will say whatever he wants because it's as if it's business as usual.
He's allowed to.
But no, I mean, during the political season, he was making audios.
That's what I'm saying, because he's allowed to.
Speaking to his supporters, to audios, and they'll put up a speaker and he will address them.
Let's not forget that it was because of Yahya Jammeh's actions after he undemocratically seized power in 1994 that we today have UDP.
Exactly.
Because he moved in, saw his biggest threat as the PPP and just banned them.
Yes, he banned any
and NCP.
The entire political class. And then sort of, so for me...
And there was nothing wrong with Barrow doing the same thing as head of the coalition government.
And some of us advocated for this. But anyway, in the spirit of democracy and being open...
Now he's threatening him.
Yes, and what really, for me, I think it is pathetic for him to make these puerile rants, I'll call them. But I think which I don't think is of any moment of significance as far as I'm concerned, because I don't think he has the gravitas to move anything in this country. But I think, for me, the deafening silence of the authorities is what is very disappointing. Today, if Mali Jobate or X or Y speaks, my good brother and friend and others would issue statements and report and review.
Who's your good friend and brother?
Dr. Ismail Sise and others, Sankare, they are very good at contrary to, and they would write a beautiful English, rebutting everything. I mean, they had a whole campaign on misinformation and disinformation, I think, early this week. So if that's the trajectory, what more disinformation and misinformation is that audio? It's
more than that.
I mean, it's beyond that. It's divisive.
Yeah. It's
divisive,
insightful.
Insightful. I mean, it has so many implications. Yeah. I mean, you are a country that went to ECOWAS and sought for support to set up a court, set up all the legal framework, and it's doing like the AG said. We really done very, very well. I mean, everything he said to you, I accept and endorse because I'm part of the process. And then, whilst the technical process is going on, so the former president says all this is basically rubbish. It's rubbish. That basically he's in fact going to arrest the president. I mean, I think not in those words, but that president will run away. Yeah. And then, apart from Henry, I really commend Henry Gomez for his, for his intervention. Apart from Henry Gomez coming out very straight and addressing it, what has the government done to assure the Gambians that what Yahya Jammeh, that they are in charge and Yahya Jammeh is just ranting, and that this TJ is ongoing, and that God willing, there'll be a court and he'll be tried in accordance with law. What has the government done up to today? How many days? I think that's rather disappointing. And that will encourage more of this runs from this embattled. I mean, I think
we were talking about the embarrassment this magistrate who is now standing trial for dealing in drugs and whatever has brought to the legal profession. What about Mbemba Drame, this fellow who went on Kirfatu and alleged that he was part of a team, that helped rig the 2021 election in Barrow's favor, and in due time he was going to, give details of how they did that. So he was arrested, bailed, now he skipped bail. How embarrassing is that to, the authorities?
I mean, okay, to be fair, the authorities cannot control. Once somebody is giving bail, which is a right in the Constitution and laws of the Gambia, Criminal Code, and once they assess that you are not a flight risk and you meet the requirement, you are entitled to bail. So authorities have done what is...
big mistake.
No, with a bit of a hindsight.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that if they didn't give him bail, we will say that people like us will say, oh, they're violating his rights. You have to be fair. So he's given bail and with conditions, and he's skipped bail. So for me, I don't see it as a big... This happens routinely. Sometimes you assess someone's situation and you think they should get bail, and you put conditions, you have shorties, and they skip bail. Because at the time of giving bail, you have to there has to be a risk, there has to be a flight risk, that there's a risk that they will flee the country. So they probably even may take his passport. I don't know the details. So I don't want to judge them on that basis. But I don't want to speak to... I think I haven't even listened to the audio because I couldn't... I understand that he said many things about that election, but I don't know the facts of it. But
the long and short of it is, he was saying that Adama Barrow was helped illegally, to retain...
I can tell you something.
Yeah.
UDP will not like it, but I will say it, right? I was part of one of the biggest domestic election observation teams through Gambia Participate, and we actually came together with two other groups, one led by Hannah Foster and the other one, I think, Emmanuel Juf, right? And we observed the election. We actually monitored the elections from period of registration, to the day of voting, to the day of counting. We had a situation room, well equipped, funded by the Americans, by the way, using technology, and we were able to track every single polling station. When they finish the vote, we have the information that will come back to us, and we put it in our computer. And we predicted the results almost to a decimal, or close to a decimal point. But we had an MOU with when I say we, as a Gambia Participate, and there's also others who did similar things, and we worked together. That MOU with IAC that we cannot release the results, so we couldn't. And we even have an app for that. So as far as, and that's why we as local observers were the first group to state that as far as we are concerned, based on what we've seen, the elections are free and fair. If you remember that. It's only, and we as Gambians, I was there, John Charles Diaz was there, Emmanuel Youth was there.
We're out of time.
Yes. So for me, I think this discussion about the election is fair or unfair, I think by and large, based on what we observed, right, it was fair for us. Now the issue went to court and was decided on a technicality. I think maybe it would have been better if
We've got to go now. Got to go now. Sal, thank you very much for coming. Salieu Taal, Gambian lawyer. You've been listening to Coffee Time with Peter Gomez. Thank you for the pleasure of company. We'll be back.